G'day and welcome to the Inforunners. I'm Execute. Today I'm joined by my partner in crime, Algared. How you doing, mate?
Good. And yourself?
A little tired, but nothing unusual there. A couple of months ago, we did an episode on big ships not to buy, so we thought today we might do the other half of that equation and the little ships not to buy. But I also think there's a little bit of a caveat here, because generally long-time users of the channel will let you know that we don't tend to recommend little ships as a whole as a value proposition, but we do recognize that there are some people that can't afford to buy a bigger ship. So this is more for the person that's just going to buy one ship. As soon as you go above $250, we recommend you kind of consolidate and get one of the ones that are bigger. But yeah, if you want to get a single ship under $250, then we'll go through and show you the ones that we recommend. You generally agree with that, Agrid?
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, then. This is the image I've got here today, and we're welcoming back the little red circle. Agrid, you can kick it off with the 100i series.
The 100i series is still a ship series I don't think should have existed. It is way overpriced for what it is, even though all the ships in that series pretty much compare to the Auroras and the Mustangs. And certainly as we go down, you'll actually see how absurd that pricing is for those ships.
Yeah, and I think that for me, Algared is kind of Origin in a nutshell. They either, because of they've now tightly packed them in so much, they either tread on themselves or other ships tread on them. And I think there's only one exception, and I'll talk about that when we get to it. So yeah.
And the other thing with the 100 series, people said, in some sense, it was part of a fan calling out, oh, we've got the 300, we've got the 400, we've got the 600, we've got the 890. Where's the 100, 200, and the missing ships? And so this was kind of filling in, but it's really a snub ship. It really doesn't. Yeah.
Do you know, as a side note, I think they should just, like, now they've done this, they should go, oh, and the 200i, it's been banned. We're never allowed to make it. It was got banned because it was that, it had some illegal thing in it or something. Just, like, make a law reason not to make it. It would be funny.
Make a law reason why not to have them.
Yeah. The other thing we should point out, as of, it's now currently, as we're recording date here today, is the 26th of March, 2022. There is a really good bundle in the store at the moment for the 100i, and if you were to be buying while that's still around, we'd actually recommend you get the 100i and upgrade through it to some of these other ships, because it gives you a $15 saving.
And it's basically able to get that 100i with as a starter pack at the same price, or 50 cents more in American dollars than an Aurora or a Mustang. That is the pricing it should have had.
You're talking that 50 cents is Australian, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it's the same price as an Aurora or a Mustang, so you're saving some money there, and basically you're able to go through and get some other stuff. All right, moving on to so this gives you a really clear example. Like, as soon as you get to the 135, it's actually $5 more than the 300i. You would have no reason not to get the 300i. It basically does everything the 135 does and more, and it's got better ship, better components and stuff like that. So this is what I was trying to mean to be like they tread on each other. And so for me, the only ship that I can actually recommend in this kind of starting lineup for Origin is the 315p. It's the only ship that I'm aware of that actually has a utility mount in this entire list that we're going to go through today. And that gives it a very unique perspective, and it's very unique to have an Origin ship that does something unique. And there is no other Origin ship that has a utility mount. So yeah.
I don't think there's any other Origin ship that actually comes with a tractor beam, and the fact that it's a size 3 utility mount means if it's on a gimbal, it's a size 2 tractor beam. So that's huge for a small ship.
I've got to correct myself. There actually is other ships in this list that have utility mounts. I just realized. But yeah, sorry, I corrected myself. 325A, you get a combat variant, which is also different for Origin, but again, there's just at that price there are better options. You can literally get the Arrow for that price, as an example, which is smaller, and there's many benefits to that. I think the ship at the actual bottom of the list, Algared, though, you tell me if you think I'm wrong, is the 85X. At $50, the 100i is a better proposition at the same price.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's mainly because the 85X really started life as a snub ship for the 890. When they created it, though, they kind of expanded it out. I think it suffers from being a very early part of that very early design language.
Agreed.
So the early design language had it, passenger sitting next to the pilot. It was really built as a touring ship, so you could actually take your guests out to view the sights. But it lacks cargo, it lacks internals, it lacks so much, and it's the same price as a 100i, which has internals and a bed. So
So basically, you're given one with your 890 jump if you're got enough money to buy one of those. But yeah, my recommendation was if you do want another Origin ship, probably pick up a 100i, or maybe even a 135C, just so you're staying within the Origin lineup. I don't think you can actually fit a 300 series technically on the pads, can you? But yeah, so
you can in an 890 you can technically get one in, but it probably shouldn't.
Yeah, like it can't be spawned there, but yeah. So yeah, maybe get a 135C for the cargo to resupply the 890 potentially, so it doesn't have to go back as frequently. But it'd probably just be 4 crates of champagne. Yes,
Possibly.
yeah. So the Apollo triage, Algared, do you want to tell me about that one?
Look, I think that Apollo triage at 250, its only problem, I think, at this price is the fact that it really is a one-trick pony. It really is focused on that medical gameplay. It's a multi-crew ship, so it's 2 players. If you're into medical gameplay, this is the best ship in this price range to get.
Yep.
And what makes it that is the fact that you've got those 2 medical wings on either side that can take 3 tier 3 beds, 2 tier 2, or 1 tier 1 bed. So you could actually have 2 of the top line medical beds in that ship. That is absolutely insane when you consider ships like the Carrack, Odyssey.
So
all the others don't have that top bed.
So bigger ships can't have the tier 1 bed, and that is really what makes the ship great. It's not going to be the tier 3s or the tier 2s. It's going to be the tier 1s. Because that just gives it a really unique ability. And I quite honestly would almost see this ship hanging out with some of those ships that have the tier 2 beds. But as you're saying, it is a one-trick pony in that regard. But that's why you have it. Yeah. All right.
Well, you look at it. The only other ship that we currently have with that top tier bed is the Endeavour. The only other place you get top tier beds is the landing bays, literally the bases, the spawn points for hospitals and space stations. So.
All right, onto the Ares series. Now, for me, Algared, I can't recommend either of these. They kind of look great in game at the moment, but long term, you can tell once armor comes in, once bigger ships come in, and everything's rebalanced. Like you can even look at other ships that are similar to it in the similar price point of, like, say, the Redeemer. They have been nerfed to high heaven to work around this meta that we have at the moment of light fighters, and that's all going to change given time. So it's not. It might be good value now, and if you want to fly one now, go nuts, get one, and have an exit strategy into something else. But I can't recommend them based on their price. Like when you can put something like a Gladiator up against this that's $90, you can get 2.5 Gladiators for one of these.
Yeah, and when you look at the fact that this is supposed to be a heavy fighter with a big, massive big gun on it, it doesn't fly like a heavy fighter at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if later on it's slowed down to be like a heavy fighter and be chewed up by light fighters.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Arrow. I think this is a really good fighter. It's been in and out of the meta quite a bit over the last few years. I still am surprised by how small this is. I remember back to when it first came out that day, Algared, and we took it out with a few ships, and it was so small. Like, it's smaller than a lot of other ships. It was very surprising.
We took it out against the Mustang, the Gladius, and I think an Aurora. I think those were the 3 we put it up against. And we were struck dumb by how small it was compared to the Mustang, weren't we? I still remember it myself. And then when you close the wings up, it's even smaller. You can get 3 of these. I've managed to get 3 of these into an 890 jump and be able to take them off with ease and land them again with ease. That's how small it is.
Yeah, and there's an advantage to being smaller because you're obviously harder to hit. Now, a lot of people say that as, you're getting less ship for your dollar, but as long as it's got all the other components the other guys have got, and and guns, and it has had nerfs over the years, like they made the shield smaller and they've brought some of the guns down. But again, that might just all be temporary, as we're trying to say. They are balancing stuff for now, and then there's clearly going to be a later because there's no armor right now, right? So that thing might get its shields back, but it won't get the armor. You see, so
Yeah.
you like don't ever take everything as it is right now as permanent. Nothing is permanent.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the other thing with small ships, that the big advantage you just pointed out with small ships is the fact that when you've got a small ship, it gives off less of a signature.
That's
so if
true.
you've got a small ship flying with a big ship, its signature is going to be hidden. And so it's only as you get really close that you'll actually be able to distinguish those smaller ships. So small ships aren't necessarily bad. They're just often bad things to pay cash for.
All right. I think we'll do a bit of a rapid fire here with these Auroras. The CL. Now, that's the one. Remind me. I read you know more about the Auroras than me.
That is
Yep.
The Aurora Clipper is the one with the largest cargo capacity. It used to have 6 cargo units. It's now got the same as a Mustang Alpha. So they kind of brought those into line with each other.
Yep.
It's kind of it's slightly better than an MR, but not as good as an LX or an LN in terms of combat capability. But it does have the highest cargo capacity.
I think the other thing you would say as a long-term backer now, like with how time's gone on, a lot of these are gonna die off a lot because like as soon as you're not going to upgrade in like side grade into something else, so you're going to just go to the next ship up. You're going to go to the $65 ships. You're not going to bother going. Oh, I'm gonna unless like you're going to play your entire game forever in the Aurora, and I just don't. There will be people that do that, I'm sure, but I almost see them like a superfluous waste of space. Sadly.
Well, in many ways it is. Like if you get your starter pack of an Aurora MR or a Mustang, you actually can't side grade and CCU or make changes to your Aurora to make it a CL. You can't add the extra hard points. You can't add the larger cargo capacity, and so you wouldn't side grade to it. You'd actually go to a different ship. So I don't see a value in it. And the ES absolutely useless and rubbish.
Yeah. For me, if I had the time over again, I would just upgrade everyone up to the Aurora LN. And if the CL has extra cargo, fold that in with the Aurora LN if it's possible, and just move on. Because I think it would save heaps of development time, and not only that, you've actually got to do spread these ships out through the verse. So just what'll happen is they'll end up just putting one variant out, and the other ones will probably be available at one random store across the whole universe. So it's kind of a bit of dead air. Like back in the day, though, it made sense because they were trying to sell and raise money. Now I think it's probably trying to cut a bit of the fat off. And for me, it's just the Aurora LN and move on.
Well, you'd remember Execute when they were first doing a lot of these ships to start off with. It was showing the options you had in terms of how you could kit out your ship.
Yeah.
And that was great to be able to say, you can have put on the large cargo crate, or you can add extra missiles or extra guns. But these days, they've all got different hard points.
Yeah.
They've either got different hard points or they've got different missile rack hard points.
Yeah.
And so
all
5 of those are totally different.
What you're kind of hitting on there is they were trying to show off what we're going to be eventually doing in the final game. And that did sell us on that. But that's like, we're going way back to the beginning here. Like these things were there since the beginning. So, yeah.
And that's old hat now. They're not doing that. They actually went to absolute distinct variants, and these are distinct variants. So, yeah, I agree. It would be nice to just see them do the one. And
yeah, I think they're too scared to consolidate stuff because people will go, "Oh, I brought this, and I want this." Yeah. But if you're giving them a free upgrade, like if that person bought a ship at $20 and they got a $45 ship, I don't think they've got any right to complain. But that's just me. And I think they should just put a survey out, and if most of the community agrees, they should just merge them all into one. And they could probably do that with a few other ships as well. But to me, the Mustang, we're going to get the Mustang series. I think the Mustang series is just diverse enough, and we'll explain why. Because most of it's internal stuff, isn't it? You know, like one came with leather seats. That's just a retexture. That's like one day's work. So yeah.
Well. Yeah, but the LX and the LN are different, but they do actually have different hard points, and they're different from the others. Is the fact that their missile rack is different, the hard point for the missile rack.
And
is
I think
different,
one had extra guns. I think the LN's got extra guns as well. So, but again, it's not that much of a difference that you wouldn't just count it in. I'm going to turn my phone off.
So I think now the LX and the LN both come with the four size ones. The MR has two empty hard points. The ES only has 2. The CL has 2 empty hard points as well, but their missile racks are different.
All right,
moving on.
We've lingered on this way too long. So this is like the number one. Oh, and actually, not the Stalker. So the one that we normally recommend all the time, Algared, is the Titan, isn't it? This is the ship that we think for the money is the best starter ship in the game, and considering it costs you an extra $10 to go from whatever ship you buy there and upgrade to. So, for example, you can actually take that package that we were talking about with the 100i, and for $5 you get to this. So it actually saves you the money there. And that's generally what we recommend people do. So if you were going to buy that pack and go through the 100i, this is the first ship we would recommend you stop at. And, generally we don't recommend you go any further than that unless you want to, and that's entirely on you. Honorable mention, obviously, is
the Avenger Titan. There is also why we don't often recommend the 300. 300, $5 more, and the Titan does what it is almost exactly the same, if not more.
Yeah,
so
it's actually got more versatility. It probably doesn't have as good as components though. That's if I'm going to put all my cards on the table. But you can't. You can actually put like one of those little grey cat buggies in the back of an Avenger. You can't do that on the 300 as an example, but I personally prefer the Avenger. It's a taste thing as well, obviously. So the Stalker as a variant is basically it's the same as the Titan, but it's got the Bounty Hunter modules in the back, and it has a different weapon layout, and I believe it's got like neuron repeaters, so it's kind of like disabling lasers rather than shooty guns, to put it in layman's terms. The Renegade is literally just a skinned version of the Titan, and it has a different gun
loadout,
different skin and a different gun loadout. The Warlock itself is an EMP variant that basically fires an MP out and disables people, and I believe it's also got disruptors, but I could be completely wrong there as well. So it's more of a support kind of ship for bounty hunting as well. So, but again, if you buy the Titan, you'll be able to buy the modules in game for the bounty hunting, so save yourself the $5 and just own them in game. And the Warlock, as far as we're at the moment, the Warlock is a completely separate hull, so you would have to buy that again. But there are other ships up the chain that have that EMP feature, and we'll go through. I think we go through all of them, bar one today. So all right.
I think that's true.
The Buccaneer, Algared, at 110. What's your thoughts on that?
Having used the Buccaneer recently in Arena Commander, I actually like it as the best. It feels like a fighter. It feels maneuverable. It has a nice punch, but it is also fragile.
Yep.
The price point...
And that's the Drake aesthetic, isn't it? Overgunned, but under-armoured. And again, we don't have armour properly in the game, so I think going a bit forward, once the armour's in, Drake will start to show a lot more. It'll be like, oh, they are fairly fragile, but those guns... And I actually think they will dial up the guns to match. Like, when they weaken them, they will dial up the guns to match. So,
Yeah. The Buccaneer, $110, and it's $10 more than a Cutlass Black. Its history and its origin of creation really comes out of complaints that the Cutlass was sold as a fighter that could also do cargo and all the rest of it. And CIG said yes, but it's now a cargo ship. So they split it off, created it at 110. At the time, gave anyone who had a Cutlass a free CCU to the Buccaneer if they wanted to use it. And the price point of that is really, I think, put against the Hornet, and they were basically saying this is back in the day. That was saying this is comparable to a Hornet in terms of combat capability.
I would agree with all that, Algared.
But I'm not 100% certain it's worth 110.
I struggle with other ships.
Yeah.
So I struggle. To me,
the same thing.
It feels like a Gladiator price ship. If it was $90, I wouldn't have that problem. I think you'd agree with that. Yeah. I'm going to move on to Pisces. I'll just kind of leave my stuff there for the Buccaneer. But the Pisces for me, I think this is the starter ship of choice. I think it does similar cargo to the others. It carries 3 people. It's fully internalized. The only thing it doesn't have is a bed, which is what the Aurora has over this. So you're taking the transporting of multiple people and losing the bed. The Mustang doesn't have a bed, so therefore it's literally between this and the Aurora for me. Anything you want to add there? Or
I 100% agree. The only other ship that's got a bed is the 100, and the only other ship that really has 2 seats or more seats is the 85X, and for Pisces, just leaves them for dead.
Yep. So yeah, it just depends on that multi-crew, because like having multiple people in a ship is a huge advantage. And the funny thing is, when you look at the 85X, going back to that, 2 people, $5 more, doesn't do the cargo. See, it's just totally trod on. So yeah.
Pisces, 3 people does cargo, $5.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's an absolute no-brainer. All right, Algared, I think this is probably the middlest of ship of the road of the entire game. Chris Roberts says it's his favourite. It needs heaps of rework. We know it's going to be in Squadron 42, but it's still a great ship. And I think it will eventually get the rework it deserves. $240, I still think... I struggle to say this, but compared to other ships, it's still pretty damn cheap. It started life... almost 10 years ago at $225. It's only gone up $25 in that time.
And it only went up $10 recently with the reworked Taurus.
Yeah.
And for that $240, you actually get a P-52 as well.
Yeah.
So it actually comes with a P-52. It's got good cargo capability. It's got areas for 4. It's got crappy turrets.
Yeah.
But it is a good ship, and its pilot control guns are sized for size 4s. So,
and if you
it is, as you said, a good ship.
I think it will eventually get the aesthetics, or some of the aesthetics of the Mantis, so that kind of Star Trekkiness. And I do think, like clearly, when you look at it on the outset, the way it lands is a big issue because it's all sitting on the back. I think it's destined for a rework. I really do. I think they tried to fix it for a year. And they just did the best they could because they had to fit it in with Squadron 42. And you got to remember, it was the test bed for the in-ship nav mesh type of stuff. And so if they change any of that, they're going to change it through all the ships. It's just, they've got to redo the work. So they know they've got other chapters coming, so they'll redo it in the other chapters. So long-term investment is what I'd call that ship. I think you'd agree with me on that.
I wouldn't be surprised if the Andromeda or the Constellation Mark IV is a totally different ship.
Totally different body. Yeah, totally different body.
That brand new aesthetic of that we're seeing in the Mantis and the Apollo.
I'll probably upgrade all of them, Algared, right across the board. The Taurus, the Phoenix, all of them. Anyway, Constellation Taurus. You must love your cargo to love this ship. That said, I think for the price, for me, there are better options. I think you have to really love the Constellation to love this. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but they ended up removing the smuggling thing, didn't they? Or correct me if I'm wrong.
No.
They do still have it?
They did. You've now got a bottom turret. It used to be the bottom turret was removed, and that's where your safe was. That is now a bottom turret with 2 size 2 tractor beams, which makes that a pretty good turret.
That's pretty handy.
And because it doesn't come with a P-52, where that P-52 docking area is, that is now the secret or the unscannable room.
So that whole room at the back, okay. Actually, now I think about it, those scanning tractor beams could be really handy for loading cargo because you could actually pick it up and rotate.
The tractor beams, but yeah,
that's what I said. Oh, sorry, but yeah, picking stuff up. Like I'm thinking of
beams, definitely, yeah.
I'm thinking of the Caterpillar, like you pick up and you put stuff in. Yeah. So it's the same thing, but you're picking it up and you put it in the conning. So that could be really handy for loading and unloading, and it also allows you to. One thing that we're realizing about tractor beams now is it allows you to unload and load in space, where you have to do it by hand if you don't have that. So that gives the Taurus a pirate ability all of a sudden. So yeah.
And when your cargo bay is down in the Taurus, that turret, when it spins around, will be able to look straight into that cargo bay and pull stuff straight out. So that is a really good value and a really nice change that they've done to the Taurus. So yeah.
Speaking of pirate ships, Corsair currently sitting at 215. We know it's on. I think it's gone into production. Actually, it went into production end of last year, so we'll probably see that this year in 2022. For me, great layout over the Constellation, but you and I both agree it all comes down to the placement of those turrets and all the armaments being placed on that one wing. 66% of the missiles and guns and all that are on one wing that can be easily blown off, and probably will be. It's like probably the main target. But the kicker for me is those 2 turrets. Unless they and in the grey box they were not. There was no change at all. That whole broadsiring thing like a ship is just not a thing. Anyone that's been in a Hurricane turret will tell you never spend any time shooting sideways. It's like next to never. So it's just not a thing in the way the game is currently at the moment. And the only time you correct me if you think I'm wrong, Agro, the only time I think you could ever want to sight sideways if you're kind of shooting down at a ground target.
Yeah. Yeah.
This ship is terrible in atmosphere and flies worse than the Constellation too. So you add all those in, and it doesn't
according
work.
to the according to the brief of the Corsair when it was being built, it is supposed to fly worse than a Connie. So that either tells you that the Connie is going to get this really, really huge boost at speed, or of course there's crap.
Right, Cutlass Black is a definite yes for me. All the others are questionable.
Yeah.
For me, again, like the red's been squashed. The blue is got that bounty hunting, but I think it's too high in price for what you get. I'd rather get two. You can literally get 3 Titans. You know, so like what? You know, like I just can't justify it.
And what's really pushing the price up in that is they added that interdiction thing to stop you being able to spool up, but.
Well, this is how you'd put it, Algared. You'd put it as get a Cutlass Black and get an Avenger Titan.
Yeah.
You know,
or get a Cutlass, get a Cutlass Black and pick up a Warlock.
Yeah.
And you've basically paid $10 more.
They're getting 2 ships.
A ship that's got the neutron guns. You got so.
The Cutlass Steel, we're going to mention this really quickly. Way overpriced. You can get two Cutlass Blacks and a Dragonfly. You cannot. In no way is that ship.
And yes, we realise that the steel is not spelt that way, but we do believe it is a steel. So it's not an error; it's deliberate.
Banu Defender ships, again, alien ship. Banu's ships tend to be the best of the best at what they do. Kind of a little bit like Origin, but other flavors. I do think this ship has a unique place. I still don't quite understand the gameplay of having a shooter and a flyer, like other than it's just that's how they've programmed it. And it tends to all fire in one direction, and it was programmed as a sniper ship. If it was just like you had like turrets and it was almost like a hurricane where you could fire around everywhere, I could get behind that. But I don't quite see what their intention was, other than it's some kind of lore reason. So this ship could go good or bad. I'm just not sold on it yet. But yeah.
So it is tied to a lore reason of the way the Banu fly. They have specialists in each field. So you'd have one guy who's focusing on shields and guns and someone else who's piloting and doing other stuff. The thing that does make this quite unique is the fact that it does have beds, it does have an internal space as well, but it's also a long-range fighter.
It's basically a saber that holds 2 people and has got beds. And you pay a little extra to get it. I think you pay like an extra $35 to get that. So,
but those long range fighters, those fighters that are meant to be able to do long distances, they're certainly going to come into their own when we get those bigger systems or go into pyro. So
also internal components that you can repair without having to go outside the ship. So there's another benefit. So yeah, F7C series Algared. So the Hornet, Super Hornet, all the variants and stuff like that. What's your take on that?
Again, when I was using Arena Commander recently, I found the Hornet series, I felt they were slow and sluggish. I found I was much better using a Buccaneer than I was with the Hornets, which surprised me. I expected the Hornets to be much better.
You do realize they will have armor. I keep bringing it up because it's really important.
The armor is the big thing,
and you never hear about it.
The armor is the thing that's different, and the different components there. F7C, your run-of-the-mill basic Hornet Wildfire is the Hornet with slightly different loadout. Super Hornet 2-player ship. The turret can be manned individually, which does make it pretty good. The Heartseeker, $15 you get an upgraded turret, which you can buy in-game. Yep. You can buy that size 5 mounted.
So all you're really getting is that exclusive skin. So yeah. The tracker is, I think that's going to show its value as time goes on, because there is no other kind of ship like that at its grade. The Hornet Ghost, for me, I think that kind of is rivaled in the Razor. There's one of the Razor variants that is stealthy. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But as a whole, the only one I really recommend there is the Hornet, the Super Hornet, because it has the 2-player fighter thing, and it is a little bit like a if the Hurricane it's kind of like an armored Hurricane. But the other thing we've got to wait and see too is what the Scorpius is like. But it's a cheaper Scorpius, so you've got to imagine that the Scorpius is a bit more oomph.
Well, the Scorpius, like the Hurricane, has the 4 guns on the turret, where the Super Hornet only has the 2. The big thing is you can get that size 5 mount to go on top, so that makes that a huge
unique thing. It's a bit more customizable, isn't it? You can even carry cargo in them too, which you can't do on the others as well.
Yep,
so
you can take that.
Definitely the more Swiss Army knife of the fighters.
If I recall, that's what the FC7 has instead of its turret. It's actually got the cargo pod replacing the turret, the gun turret.
Yeah. I don't even know how much cargo that carries now. Like, that's how old it is.
I believe it's 1.
Wow.
It used to be 1 SCU.
That's nothing.
But hey, 1 SCU is better than no SCU, right?
Yeah. True. All right, moving on to the.
It still carries more cargo than an 85X.
Moving on to the Freelancer, you've obviously got your stock standard variant, you've got your Explorer variant, you've got your cargo variant, and you've got your Miss variant. There is one thing where I was noticing when I was writing this list out is there's such a jump in price between these compared to this and other. Like, it's almost like you can see there. It's almost like a $20 jump every time. The Miss is the combat variant, obviously. I can't get behind that again anymore at that price. I think the only one I can really get behind, and it's only because of one specific thing, is the DER, and that's because it can go. It's the last ship we heard about the Freelancer. Is that if you actually look at the smaller pads, it's the biggest ship that can fit on the smaller pads, and also it's the biggest ship that can go through the small jump points. So say. The Max has almost as much cargo as the Taurus. I did at one point, it's probably changed, but that would still be the difference. The Max can go through the small jump point, but the Taurus can't. And so you can start to see there's these little variations there. For me as a whole, Algared, I think you'd agree. Tell us about the internals, because I think it needs a rework, yeah?
Oh, I hate the internals. It's got 4 seats for passengers or four seats for crew, but it really only has positions for 2 crew. So it's got a turret at the back, it's got the pilot. You could possibly chuck a 3rd person in as doing shields.
Yeah. So I think the simple one, Algared, is knock it back to 2 beds. The exception to that is the Mist that actually needs the 3rd bed. And you know it's got that weird little cargo thing in the middle where the docking ring is at the top? I would actually just put a bed in that room. So you can have 3 people in the Mist. The other versions just get 2 beds and that's it. And I think eventually it may get something like that given time.
Yeah, it has the same crew as a Connie, but it shouldn't. It is a weird thing. It does need a rework.
Yeah. All right, Gladiator. Love to fly this. Clunky as hell. It just feels really dated, but there's something really cool about it. Reminds me of like flying a World War I plane or something like that. Like, it just feels that dated.
It basically
no,
your
like
World War II torpedo bomber.
Yeah, but like it feels like the World War I bombers with the like it feels even older than that. Like it feels old. Like if the rest of the game is World War II in space, this feels like World War I. That's why I say that. Yeah.
I think you'd compare this to a swordfish, the English World War II biplane torpedo bomber, as opposed to the American torpedo bombers.
Yeah, I think
it does have that. It is clunky. It does feel like that. The thing I dislike about it, and I wish it had, is the fact it's a 2-person ship. It's got a turret gunner, but unless you've got a 2nd person in there, that turret is dead.
Yeah,
and so I wish the turret actually worked like the F7 CMs.
Yeah, it needs that, and I think it probably needs to be upgunned a bit on the turrets, especially. I think the ships, for me, that suffer a lot in the fighter category are the ones that have turrets where the turret has smaller guns than the pilot. Really good example of that is the Vanguard series. That turret just feels terrible because he's sitting there with this massive size 5 gun on the pilot, and you're just here sitting these little size 2s going, oh, God. And it feels terrible. It's not fun.
It's like the Connie, size 4 guns for the pilot and size 2 size 1s for your
all right,
for your pilot.
We've got 3 versions of the Gladius here. So you've got the Pirate is just a reskin Gladius. Is there actually any loadout with that? Do you remember?
I think there might be a loadout difference, but it's
negligible.
And I think you could only get that if you did the
Pirate Swarm,
Arena Commander Pirate Swarm.
Yep.
So if you do that and clear it, you get access to it.
And you can't get insurance with it and blah, blah, blah. The Valiant is just another variant again in a different skin. Again, I can't really get behind, as Algared's suggesting, can't really get behind the Valiant and the Pirate unless you're just really into piracy. The Valiant, I think eventually will be able to earn that in-game, so I wouldn't even worry. And I think that it's the same thing with the Pirates again. I think you'll be able to earn those in-game, getting reps of certain factions. The Gladius itself, though, the star of Squadron 42, it's easily the test bed. It flies really well at the moment. It's probably one of the best ships to earn because it's the most polished at the moment. But given time, hopefully that goes to everything.
It is the one they put their HUDs in first. Everything they do for the ships, for the fighters, the Gladius is the first one they try it on. So yeah, it makes it a good ship.
The Hawk, a weird little interesting quirky little ship designed for bounty hunting. It's got some really little quirks about it. I enjoy it. It's actually the second ship I buy when I earn ships in game, the first being the Hurricane at the moment because of the meta, and then I go earn a Hawk, and I just have fun flying this ship. I can't put my finger on it, but I know I'm not the only one that does it. And it's another one of those. So go ahead.
I was just going to say, it is a really nice ship to fly, and it is small, and it's quirky, and everything you said. Sorry, go on.
No, I was just going to say, I also discovered recently it's the one that shows the discrepancy between prices again. So we've shown this a few times in the past where there's a ship that you can buy out of game and it might be double the price of the other, but then you get in game and it's actually cheaper than the other. And every time we bring this up, they change the price. So I'm going to try and get them to change it again. You ready? So the Hawk cost $100, the Hurricane cost $195, but in game the Hurricane's cheaper. How does that work? In what world? But it's like the fourth one of these we've discovered, and I'm sure it won't be the last. So yeah.
I'm sure.
Our namesake Algared, the Herald. You were telling me about this during the week on the racing. So tell us a little bit about that. It wouldn't picture it for racing, but we've actually brought this up as a drag racer before, haven't we? We actually did bring this up.
Yep. We did suggest it, and that's basically how CIG kind of originally sold it. Fastest ship, basically cockpit with rockets, and that's exactly how it races.
Yep.
And at the Crux Cup on the weekend of March 21st, I think, of this year, the A-Crux, the top of the line, the professional racers, they were all racing the Herald. It was flying around the track at Orison in about 3.5 minutes. If you were looking at, say, an Aurora, they were taking about 7 minutes. A Retaliator, Reclaimer was taking about 30 minutes. So it was going really fast. I think the fastest time I saw was 3 minutes and 6 seconds, which was really fast. But I was surprised how quick it could go and how quick it was able to handle those corners using its boosts.
It's very cheap too for its price, considering you get something like the Terrapin that is more than double, and it only suits one person. This suits two people. So
it was interesting to go back to what we were talking about the 350R earlier.
Yeah.
During the Crux Cup, I don't recall seeing a single 350. I
There
saw
you
an
go.
M50. I didn't see a single 350.
Were there any raises,
so there you
Algared?
go.
Let's bring that up. We're going to talk about it in a minute. But were there any raises?
I can't recall. All the top races, all the top, all the fastest times were certainly Herald. I did see I do recall seeing a Hull A. I saw a swag of Auroras because there is an Aurora Classic race there as well. And then there was a bevy of other things. But yeah.
Give it a year and it'll probably all change again, though, yeah? So
Yeah, in a year it could all change again. But I thought the Herald was really good. It looked the way it was flying was the way CIG had actually intended it to go. Very fast.
Hull A and Hull B had a price increase late last year due to the Raft coming on the scene and stuff like that. But as they said with the Hull A, John Crew said recently in the ISC when they were talking about Hull A, it carries more cargo for its size than any other ship, and it'll be the same with the B, the C, the D, and the E. They just dominate. Yep. They have advantages of you can remove cargo in space, but they're also easy to attack. I think at $80 or $140, I think they're both good buys personally.
Yeah, and the Hull A is the only one you can take down to a planet fully laden. So I think that's really going to be.
No, you can take the B. It's the C where
not
it stops.
fully laden.
I believe
For the B, you'd have to take off the bottom. You'd have to take off the bottom rung.
it doesn't have a bottom run. It's the C that's got a bottom run. Anyway, we'll look into that later. No, I'm pretty sure it's just the C that is where that stops, and you can not fold it out.
I think you're actually wrong, but we'll look at that
later. We'll look at it later. It's semantics at this point. But yeah, anyway, moving on to the Hurricane. The Hurricane, as we talked about earlier, it's very in the meta at the moment. It's a ship that I definitely go out of my way to buy right now when I'm in game. Would I buy it in real life? No, based on what I was telling you about the Hawk before. No. We've also got the Scorpius around the corner. And if you actually kind of look at that, like how much does that make you think the Scorpius is going to cost in game? You know, so I think from what I've heard from people that are, people tell me things from inside CRG, is that the Hurricane, then you've got the Scorpius, and then the other side of that would be the Vanguard series. So where the Vanguard's a lot more armored, the Hurricane is completely armorless, and it's basically a glass cannon. You're getting more armor on, but then it slows the movement more towards the Vanguard side. So it's somewhere between the two. And obviously you've got a much more restricted turret, in my personal opinion. And I'm not sold on that gimmick, Algared. I don't know about you, but the gimmick of the turret moving to the back and going to the bottom when you can just roll the ship. Yeah. I think that it's almost, I think they said 1.5 seconds, 2 seconds or something like that. It's just going to be quicker to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure of a gimmick. I think the Scorpius really is sold in terms of its X-Wing or Star Fury type look.
Rule of cool, 100%.
The Hurricane, I expect that the Scorpius will be as much fun to fly as a Hurricane, and as much fun to gun as a Hurricane.
Agreed.
And it's just going to be whichever one you prefer. But yeah, I love doing the Hurricane. The Cartoon Me.
So the Cartoon Me
named after me.
Yeah. So
named after me.
So for me, Algared, I don't think this ship's seen its heyday yet. I think this is the Scout or the Wormhole navigation ship, and until they come online, I don't think we'll see that. I think this is a racer's daily profession. If you think about it, if you're trying to get those times of traveling through the wormhole down to save fuel and time and all that, a normal racer will be doing time trials through wormholes to get that down, so people buy theirs over other people's, and therefore they can make more money, etc., because the people are saving on fuel costs. That's a racer's daily profession. So I think obviously, if you know the Cyan, and I know you do, they have more maneuverability. It's going to be what type of ship goes, because I think every wormhole will be different, don't you? So a lot of those racing ships will become wormhole navigation. Yeah.
CIG have hinted at that it's a matter of navigating those wormholes and how we can move. The K2L, I think, really does favour people using sticks because of the way the thrusters work. And the other thing is the K2L is, I think, is one of those ships that we've got. Certainly, it was, I think, the first two-person ship that was very small that we really got. The weight, side by side.
Originally, it was concepted that way. It was originally concepted that way, but it's only one person now. They removed it. Yeah, it sucks. Because it would have been so much cooler. You could have one person on the scanners and one person shooting a turret.
Especially because the turret is a 360-degree turret, so it can spin around. So if you had that second gunner, you could actually be shooting behind yourself. And so alas, I was wrong. The ship named after me.
I think though, like if we go through a look at some of these other races, I actually think someone that does wormhole navigation or time trials, whatever you want to call it, they will probably have every racing ship because they'll need it for different wormholes. And let's be honest, they're all fairly cheap compared, like you can work solo, and they're all kind of fairly cheap comparatively, because I don't know about you, Algared, but I'm not seeing many PvPers following you through a wormhole trying to shoot you as you go through a wormhole. Yep. I think it'll be a little difficult.
The only concern I'd have with the K2L comes from the Crux Cop when we used to be in Arena Commander. The K2L really was so big because of its profile when going through the rings, and that could be a negative if you were trying to navigate smaller or
again,
or rather torturous.
Interest of time, it'll probably get a lot more balanced and get a lot more maneuverability to make up for that obviously large profile. So M50, one of the smaller ships in the game. I clearly see this being an A to B ship, as I said, wormhole navigation as well, etc. Mantis, Algared. Moving on to that. I know you want to talk about the QLED.
I love the Mantis in terms of its look.
Yep.
I love the vit. I love the look of it. I love the profile. But
I hate everything else.
I hate it very much.
So yeah,
I will say when it first came out.
Yeah.
When it first came out, I was flying it. The asteroid came up. I managed to avoid it. It ripped off an engine, ripped off the whole side. But didn't die. Pirate attacked me again, didn't die. It blew off an engine. The ship was like a little tank. Only when I tried to get out of it did she kill me. So, beware of the Mantis.
And like Algared said, the look of this ship is really good, and we hope to see that aesthetic go on back to some of the Andromeda ships at a later date. MPUV, the only reason I can't get behind this is as a starter ship is it just doesn't no jump drive, so you just kind of can't go anywhere. Well, but this ship will prove itself on the bigger ship, so it's not a ship that I think you and I can get behind as someone buys as their only ship. Or as a starter ship, but this is definitely a ship that you kind of want if you own a much bigger ship.
Fortunately, though, you can't actually get the MPVUs with a starter pack, so that's not a worry.
Yep. Mustang, Alpha and Vindicator. Vindicator is basically a skin. The Alpha, as we said, is the starter pack, but as we said earlier, it gets overshadowed by the Pisces and the Aurora, so I kind of rule that one out. Moving on to the Beta. Now, this is interesting because it brings it back into the fold at $40, and it has a bed. And for me, that actually is the one that I think goes toe to toe with the Pisces and the Aurora, and if you really want to go cheap, that's the one to get for me. But again, you don't get the starter package with it. So yeah,
that's true. But the other downside with it is it replaces that habitation area replaces the ability to take cargo. So that you've got your cargo loose in the back of your ship. So you can take boxes, but it's a magnet.
So as you can see, these are cheaper, but they're just not as versatile as the Auroras, and for that price, you're kind of tying one hand behind your back at the start of the game. But yeah, again, it's up to you. And again, some of them don't come with the starter packs, and some do. So yeah, the Delta for me is the more expensive one. And again, when you're going to $65, you better want to like combat, and you're getting dumbfire rockets. Yeah. But again, for $10 less, you can get a Titan, and it's pretty upgunned, and it does bounty hunting and all that as well, so I just don't see the need. And the Gamma's the racing ship. Again, if you want the Gamma, get it. But again, I think there are, better options out there that are roughly the same, unless you think different, Algared.
I didn't see any Mustang Gammas in the Crux Cup.
Well, there you go. Tell me about your favourite ship, Algared, the Nomad.
It's a great $10 upgrade to a Cutlass blade. Look, I know people out there, I love it.
Yeah, there are.
It does have the external cargo bay. You can load cargo into it really quickly.
But again, you can put a Hull A at $80. Why wouldn't you pay $10 less and get a Hull A?
But because you can put a vehicle in the back of that cargo pad, but
$10 more, and $10 more, and you can put two vehicles in the back of a Cutlass. So
as I did when it first came out, I did buy a couple of these the packs that came out when it was available, because it was a really good buy.
And that was the first time we got a pack like that in about 4 years. So, but that shows you how bad the ship was. So yeah.
It was the only time we've ever got a single ship with a 20,000 UEC bonus. I bought it for my nephews, and I even said to them, look, this ship, I personally hate this ship, but it's the best game pack I've seen. Spend $10 or $20 and upgrade it to a Cutlass Black.
Algared, I think you would agree with me. The Merlin and the Archimedes are basically LTI tokens. They fall into the same bracket as the MPUVs, so I'm going to move on from those. They are cheap, they are good, but they are better with their mothership, aka the Connie. Now, going back to the Mantis at $150, we've got a Prospector at $155. A much better proposition. You can actually do things with it in the game right now, and you can
without getting a crime stat.
Exactly. You can actually make a lot of money at the moment. Talk to our friend John Citizen. He'll yell its praises of this ship. So yeah, I can't. That's definitely anything that does something that's very profession based is always a good buy on these ships. If you can only get the one, and a Prospector is one that I can definitely get behind.
Yeah, and I think you're right. The Prospector is also a ship that will pair up well with the larger ships down the line. It'll either pick up the small bits that have been missed, and if it does get that downward searching laser that you saw in those early graphics,
can I just
scanning.
Can I just say something to the fact they actually confirmed that on this week's live show. I'll show you after.
Right.
They've actually confirmed there is now underground mining. All the people that called us liars.
I had
that
episode.
Yep. That's right. I'll show it to you after we do this. So yeah, let's move on to the Razor.
Certainly makes the Prospector really good.
It's going to work as a scout for other mining vehicles. Long story short, as you said. So yeah, we got the Razor. These are the ones that I always forget. So there's a black one, and I believe that's the LX. That's the one that I think is going to go kind of toe to toe with the Ghost.
I think it's the EX with the black, but LX is the luxury version.
Oh, you're right. So the LX is the racing one now, or is it just the Razor?
Yeah, I think the LX is the racer. Yeah. The EX is the
stealth.
Stealth. And the Razor is the standard one. The LX is kind of a dragster, and the EX is the stealthy one with the black skin.
So again, that falls into those people. Like, you are racers, you know your stuff way better than I will ever know. You know, if that's your jam, that's your jam. But you've got to be into racing. That stealth one though, we have to wait. The gameplay is just not there. You know, it's got a lower signature. It will be a scout ship that you send in to try and find a critical piece of information and get out again. And it may be better than Gladiator just because it's smaller. You know, it's just that simple. So yeah, but again, I can't tell you that's worth it at that price. No, I can't get behind the price either.
I agree.
Reliant core has its similar issues to the what you were describing about the Cartoile, with that really big wing. I think the only good one for me is, like, we've got a couple here, like the Mako. That's more of a content creator ship, a bit of a gimmick, so most people avoid. The Sen, when the science stuff comes in, it's a wait and see. The Tanner, I really think if you had to get the ship based on, like, it's just your thing, the Tanner is the best option because of the combat, and it's got the 2SC of cargo. I've never, ever seen anyone doing cargo runs in a core. And again, at that price, $15 less and you can get a Hull A.
And this is the one that does have 2 seats, and it does have that 360-degree turret on the wing, which means your second person could man the gun, take the turret, and actually turn it around and be shooting behind you. And
it's $75 cheaper. You can get 2 of them for the price of the Cartoile. So it's just crazy. And the funny thing is, it is a humanized alien hybrid of the Cartoile. Even though you can tell from the shape language, but yeah.
It is a missed ship. It is picking up that Xeon technology in it as well. It is kind of getting that kind of changing format set. Retaliator base.
Probably one of the best value ships in this lineup, but the problem is it doesn't come with anything. So you have to actually have almost another ship to go with it to earn the pieces to put in it. So, because I think the default version will probably just be, when it's said and done, will probably just be cargo modules. So it'll probably start out, or does it not come with any modules at all, Algared? Do you know?
It doesn't come with any modules. So the base actually has nothing. It's literally supposed to have...
So you would have to go out and do combat missions with the turrets to earn enough to start putting modules in it.
It becomes a cut down. It becomes a cut down hammerhead. It's got the holes in the middle.
Yeah, but it's literally half the price of the bomber variant. And so if you're having a grinding game, we'll put it this way: $150 on that versus the Mantis. You just can't compare. Like it's a solo ship versus
it's a solo ship versus a cruise ship. And the Mantis, you use its abilities and you've got a crime stat. This, you can actually do stuff with mates and much better ship.
5 people. We know it's going through a rework at the moment to get that docking door on the side. You can upgrade it into bombing. You can do cargo in it. You can upgrade living quarters so it actually extends the range of the ship, and you can also put troop deployment in it as well. So it's got anything that's got versatility is going to stand that test of time. So I think of all the ships in this lineup, it's probably one of the best just because of its price point. That's a very...
And it's also got that long range, so...
Yeah. Saber.
It there as well.
The Saber...
Another long range ship?
Yeah, kind of like the... Well, not long range, but like the Defender, but it's one person instead of 2. So if you don't like the thought of the alien ships, or you don't like the thought of... You don't need beds, and you don't want to do it with 2 people, the Saber. Comment's just a variant of that, isn't it, Algared? So, yeah.
It is. And I did make the error there when I said it's the long range. I was mixing it up with the Vanguard.
No, that's all right. That's all right.
Just to clarify. But yeah, I can't add any more to what you've said. Santoki Eye.
Yeah, well, so the
Alien ship?
Yep. One of the best on paper at the moment, but it's a medium alien fighter. What happens when they bring out the heavy alien fighter?
Yeah.
So, I again, for me, if I was into the alien ships, I'd have this, but I'd be sitting on it waiting for them to bring out a heavy alien fighter. And I'd probably leave it in a CCU chain.
If I remember, I think the Defender is also a medium fighter. And so you've got to
that's a light. That's a light fighter.
Oh, it's considered a light fighter.
Yeah, it's a light fighter. So yeah, and does the Banu have a medium fighter or a heavy fighter? We don't know. You know, so you got to start asking yourself these questions, like because they seem great now, but are they going to be great on release? And when you start to go through that, we know heavy fighters exist. We know medium fighters exist. When you got those light fighters, but you don't have anything that connects up with them, you've got to start to wonder: are they holding off the better stuff? And we know they are, by the way. So yeah, the Scorpius. We talked about this a little bit before. It'll be out this year. Again, for me, it's a old tried in game, but I just can't get behind fighters at their price point, and that's across this list. Like generalistically, we just don't recommend them.
Yeah, I really like the look of it, but
agreed.
For the gameplay you get, it's basically a Hurricane. Hurricane's cheaper. Unless it's your jam, don't do it.
SRV, I think for me, this is a 100% earning game. I think it is kind of expensive at 150. Do I think this ship will get used? A lot. Yes, I do. But again, and if towing things is your game, I can totally see one person buying this and that's the only ship they own. I can totally get behind that. I don't know about you, Algared, but I can.
I can see a value in this as a for people who are into repair, being able to go and drag a ship back to port rather than repairing it, going and hauling it back is basically a tow truck.
I've just realised I've missed a ship off this list. I forgot to add the Shrike. But that's all right. They're the same price. One was missiles, one was guns. Again, I think it feels like a Gladius, but you're paying an extra $25. Would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, and it does feel small. It does feel nimble. But that long tail actually means that it's takes up so much room. Something
I found out, Algared, is if you cut all the feathers off, it's actually roughly the same size and maneuverability as the Arrow, but because of the things, and the Arrow rolled faster, but it, I don't know what to call that. It tumbled faster. I don't know what to call that. But yeah, so they are similar to the Arrow, but it's much overpriced for what it is. And obviously
and it takes up twice as much room as an Arrow, so...
Yeah, so I can't get behind that when I know the Arrow exists, so yeah. The Terrapin, again...
I've got to say, for talent, it does look an awesome ship.
Yeah, it does. I'm a big fan of that fire skin for it, the orangey red fire metallic skin.
Yeah.
The Terrapin, I think this Terrapin is going to age like a fine wine and probably want to be one of those best solo ships that you can probably get in the game. It is expensive, like I said before, like when you look at something like the Herald, but I think if you want to have that as it goes into the game, you know, when scanning comes along, like we know it's the first ship they're going to use for components. They've said that. That's why it's got all the doors that open and stuff. So you're going to get the advantage of that. You're going to get the advantage of all the scanning gameplay when that goes online. It looks amazing. Actually, I had someone the other day, Galahero. He hadn't actually ever been in a Terrapin. And I said, "Are you crazy?" And he's just on stream going, "Execute's right. What the hell's wrong with me?" Like he was looking through it and basically he'd never been in one, and he just was falling. You could see him in a 5-minute period just falling in love with the ship. It is a great ship.
It is a great ship. It is a great ship, and it gets its name because it's supposed to be really, really tough.
But it's very expensive because you can, for $5 left, you can get a Corsair. You know, the original price of the Star-Runner was $225, which is only $5 more. It's now $260. For $40 more, you get an entire Mercury Star-Runner. You know, if the Constellations, $45 more? Where is it? Constellation is $240, so it's an extra $20 to get to a 4-person ship instead of a 1-person ship. It does have a bed. It does have gun racks and all that. So it is fairly feature complete for a 1-person ship, but it's bespoke as well. So it has to be for you.
Apart from its scanners, it does have a utility mount that does take 2 size 2 scanners, I think. Or
It's
2
got
utility.
it's got 2 utility mounts. And they're different sizes, but that's what makes this ship unique. Is it's got 2 scanners where most ships only have 1, and even then they're not as powerful as a single one. So you can go out and
I think the only other ship
scan multiple things
that I can think of that's kind of getting close to be the Aquila, and that 310, and that turret has 2 size 2s on it, and that's the only one that kind of has this difference, apart from maybe the MSR.
I'm going to tangent here because because when we were talking about way back at the beginning about utility mounts on the 315P, this is one of the other ships I was thinking of. The other one I forgot to mention was the Cutlass series. They all have tractor beams on the front as well. So I didn't bring that up because that is a special thing to the Cutlass. And again,
I think the Cutlass, I think one of the Cutlasses has a tractor beam on the back as well.
The red. Yep. The red.
So,
the Raft, again, with the cargo refactor coming along this year, we have not seen the full features of that. Clearly been delayed because of what happened at the end of the year. They had the ship ready to go, so they just released it. So right now it's just a cargo ship, but it is clearly a sky crane or space crane, and designed to help unload a lot of those whole series of ships and speed that up. And if you want to be that guy that sits in the crane and unloads all day, that's your ship. Yes, you can do it for cargo runs as well, so you do get a little bit of versatility there as well.
And if you are looking at cargo runs, the Raft carries the same cargo as a Connie Andromeda. It has significantly less firepower, but it does do that.
You are locked to those larger cargo crates, but he is correct. So it significantly cheaper, and it's got really good internals as well. So
This is a very nice ship to be in.
The Hoplite, drop ship. Again, a bit bespoke. It's got double redundancy on everything. I think there are better dropships out there, but in the sub 250, it's okay. I'm not in love with the Vanguard anymore, right? With what they did with the nose gun, it's kind of ruled it out for me. Them wanting to feel like a particular ship from World War II is a little ridiculous. Like crippling it and giving it bespoke guns. They should have just put guns around the nose and it would have been fine. Just for a feel is a bit weird. And I wonder if that's Chris Roberts. I do wonder. Is that him going, it must be this way?
Might be. Bit like the Connie lost its bigger guns on its turrets because they were too big.
Yeah.
Interestingly, if you look at the Hoplite versus the Steel, they're exactly the same price, which might be why the Steel has that price, because it's a dropship as well.
Yeah, but I would take the Hoplite though, because it's got all that extra redundancy and stuff like that, and it's probably more special forces that nobody is ever going to want 20 people in a ship that week. Yeah. No one.
The Hoplite also came into being, from my memory, because the Redeemer was supposed to be the ship or the drop ship for the Javelin, which they needed for Squadron 42. There were problems with it. They jury-rigged and created the Hoplite to fulfill that role. So it is a ship that's also used in Squadron, I do believe.
I'll just let you know you're lagging, Algared, and you look very much like the people in the milkshake bar in Back to the Future 2. You're doing this kind of hey thing. And anyway, this is where my head went. Anyway, I've got 2 ships left, so we'll go to the Vulcan. Again, I struggle with bigger ships like this, like the Crucible and that existing. I do see the place for this. I think the Vulcan, like Badges and SA have really convinced me that the Vulcan is really good at repairing tanks and stuff that are out in the field, and so the Vulcan does have its place. I just kind of can't get behind it at its value proposition when I know you can get a Crucible for less than 2 of them. And again, you could take the Crucible and earn down. But if you can only afford 200 and you can't afford 350, then obviously, and you're into repair, obviously that's your choice.
The only other reason I would consider a Vulcan over a Crucible is the fact that the Vulcan is a maximum of 3 people to crew it, whereas a Crucible is generally 8 people. So if you know you're never going to be playing with 8 people, the Vulcan, as I said in our previous video, it suffers in its cargo capacity. So you really got to focus on what you're doing.
Yep. And the Vulture kind of falls into the similar bracket, but it gets much of a leeway because it's $60 cheaper. Again, it'll be online this year. Drake aesthetic, and it really does break that mold of Drake ships. It looks completely different.
Yeah.
Again, if you want that salvage thing, like it's kind of akin to the Prospector, but it's a different level of gameplay. And I expect this will probably go when it comes out, Algared. I believe at the time, now you correct me if I'm wrong, but at the time the Prospector was $135, and so it went up $20. So I'm expecting this to be $5 more expensive than the Prospector and become $160. That's what I'm expecting. I'm not saying it will, but yeah.
And that seems reasonable. They usually do go up by about that amount. But I also expect the Vulture, like I said with the Prospector, I think it'll scale well with the larger ships. It'll work well in picking up the bits and pieces that the Reclaimer has missed or hasn't been able to get. So
yeah, and there's no reason they can't like if you're working in a team, like you've also got all those tractor beams and lasers as they're chopping up, they could just be throwing off small pieces off to the Vulture team, because obviously you're going to want to have people out there. Like if it's a full team operation, they just don't use their blast things, but they're picking up and stripping just to pick up the speed of it, and they can do the smaller pieces. So the Reclaimer itself can thing on the bigger pieces, and we've still got 2 salvage ships to come that we haven't even seen. So they may pair with them really well as well.
And that's based on the idea that they want a ship for each size category.
Yeah. All right. Well, I hope that kind of helps those of you that are probably newer. And these are the ships that you would look at. But again, as I said, the caveat I'll go over is as soon as you go over kind of $250, there's always a better singular ship. And remember, you can take that bigger ship and always earn backwards very easily. You can't take something small and earn something big quickly, but you can pretty much do like one mission in a Carrack and go buy a ship under $100, because that's how much money you earn. And we've seen these economics of scale already. So again, rather than have 5 small ships, push them together and get one big one. I can't iterate that enough. This list is really for those of you that only want to buy one ship. And we do kind of recommend that now, because there are so many people with big fleets, you don't need more than one ship, right? So pick one of these and play with your friends.
And I'll chuck the other caveat in. You don't even need to get any ship. All you need is a starter pack.
Yep.
That's a ship with either an Aurora, a Mustang, or any of the starter packs. There are some starter packs that are better than others. If you've heard what we've been saying, we think the Avenger Titan is a really good starter pack. The Cutlass is a really good starter pack. If you can't afford those, Aurora or Mustang. That's all you need.
I would say Aurora or Pisces. I'd actually retract the Mustang personally. I'd go Pisces or
that's right, because you can get the Pisces with a starter pack. Yeah. So, but that's all you do need to play the game. You don't need anything else. You can do everything else in game.
And I'm sure your friends out there will tell you the same. So yeah. All right then. Like this type of content. Like this video if you like the video. Hate this. Dislike. I was gonna say hate the video if you hate this video. Dislike the video. Dislike this video. Please subscribe. I have been hearing a lot of people in the last 2 weeks telling me that they've not been getting notifications for our stuff. So please check that if you if you are a regular viewer, because I don't know what's happening there. But apparently the algorithm is not liking us very much. And if you want to go that extra mile on Patreon, we use it to buy new gear and stuff. And that actually helps support us financially and go that extra step. Other than that,
you can also do that. You can also do the become a subscriber type person on YouTube.
Yep.
I believe now. So that's pretty much it.
Yep.
Leave a comment. We do read every single comment. We don't always answer them, but we do read every single comment.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts
like what you think
on this list. And do you kind of agree with this or disagree with this? I know there's going to be comments about the Nomad. I can hear it from a mile away, but just at its price point, it's between 2 ships that are better than it, and go cheaper or go more expensive. Take your pick. But we get that all the time. But and I'm sure there's some other ships in there that people will disagree on. If you want to get a ship, mate, you go get the ship that you want. Don't let me stop you. But I can't. We have to give generalized advice here, and that's why we don't get many complaints from the people that we actually customize and tailor all our Fix My Fleet content to, because we tailor it directly to that person, and we've never ever had a complaint.
And try to work them out based on what they're saying they like to do, and looking at the ships that kind of fit all the things I try to do. And yeah, so.
How long have we been doing this now? 4 years or something. So there's quite a few of them. So to not have any complaints, I think we're doing all right. All right, then. He's been Algared. I've been Execute, and we'll catch you in the next one.
And we're out of here.